Bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for the many blessings. We thank you for these councilmen that we have here in the city of Clinton and the fine job that they do trying to go about the city's business and keep us on the straight and narrow. We pray that you'll be with them tonight as they look over the agenda and make the decisions that they will do so in a manner that will be beneficial to the city of Clinton and the people that live here. Just pray that you'll go with us, guide, guard, and direct us. In Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two public hearings.
The first one is going to be tabled due to SWOTA staff being afflicted with flu. So we'll go to the second public meeting, which Clyde is going to present.
Thank you. The Oklahoma Department of Commerce has grant funding available. There's an application to apply for community development block grant funds. The city received a fire truck under this program within the last year. The grant for the fire truck has been completed and closed out. This is a public hearing to see if the city would be interested in applying for another community development block grant. The applications for the general purpose, like for fire trucks, police cars, streets, things of that nature, is due on March 31st. The maximum amounts you can apply for that is $150,000. And we wanted to ask maybe if the city would be interested in applying for police cars, something of that nature. If the city could supply matching funds for maybe one car, we could use that as matching leverage funds for 2 more cars. That's up to the city. So we just want to share that with you. You can use the same income survey that was done. It's good for 5 years. So they just asked that we have a public hearing before the application period. If you so choose to do an application, we can have the forms and things for you in a future council meeting to put on your agenda for approval. So this is just an opportunity we want to share with you.
And I do believe that there are funds in the current budget for 1 police car.
You got to be a good plan.
Yeah, you need a resolution from us, Scott?
That was something we would put on your agenda. There's a formal resolution that we would put on your agenda for approval at a future meeting.
Okay.
And there's also a citizen participation plan that we would also put on your agenda for review and approval.
Do you need a motion and a second to proceed with that
Yes.
application process?
So I'll make that.
Second.
Councilman Rodoff?
Yes.
Councilman Martinez?
Yes.
Councilman Lowry?
Yes.
Councilman Hewlett?
Yes.
And Mayor?
Yes. All right. Now I call to order the regular meeting of the Solid Waste Authority and consider a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Trustee Lowry?
Yes.
Trustee Hewlett?
Yes.
Trustee Rodoff?
Yes.
Trustee Martinez?
Yes.
And Chairman?
Yes. Action item A, Mars Pet Care Recycling Service.
Mars Pet Care wishes to become a zero contributor to a landfill. They recycle a great deal of what they generate, but there are some things that they generate that can't be recycled at the manner that they have at hand. What they're asking is the authority to contract with someone other than Republic Services, I think is the name of our company, so that these things that they can't recycle locally can be hauled to a recycling plant. I believe it's in Oklahoma City. So when we looked at our contract with Republic Services, it was determined that some action by the council would be necessary in order for this to happen. Did you write this, Ryan?
Yes, I drafted this.
Okay. So this is a result of discussion between Ryan and Mars and Republic Services, which will allow that to take place.
Your corporate citizen. Sounds like something we should do.
I don't see why not.
Make a motion that we approve the agreement.
I'll second.
Trustee Randolph.
Yes.
Trustee Martinez.
Yes.
Trustee Huber.
Yes.
Trustee Lowry.
Yes.
And Sherman.
Yes. Interested to see what they do. Trustee reports? City manager's report?
No, sir, thank you.
Audience participation regarding solid waste authority? Consider a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting. I move to adjourn.
Trustee Lowry. Trustee Huber.
Yes.
Trustee Martinez.
Yes.
Trustee Randolph.
Yes.
And Sherman.
Yes, city council agenda. Motion for approval of the consent agenda. I so move.
Second.
Councilman Lowry.
Yes.
Councilman Huber.
Yes.
Councilman Randolph.
Yes.
Councilman Martinez.
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes, we need to table action, or action on it.
Yes, we do.
A, take action on ordinance number 954, here we go. Providing for the continuing the levy and collection of 0.5% sales tax.
This would actually be a new sales tax that would be levied for the express purpose of collecting funds to address the 2014 bond issue. Now, it may say for the construction of our old plant, wells, and water lines, but that 100% of that half-cent sales tax will be earmarked for that particular purpose. You know, the reason behind this, and I'm speaking for myself here, is that that will alleviate some of the burden on the backs of our customers from having to come up with the money through increased utility rates, water rates, in order to pay that tax off. Now, it would go to election of the people in April, I believe. It would become effective July the 1st, and that July the 1st is a date that I believe the state of Oklahoma is the one that determines that. It would terminate, is it September 30th? Is that right? September the 30th of 2019. During that time, 100% of those funds generated would be for the project as I previously discussed.
And that's the key, it's half a cent sales tax for 4 years, roughly 4 years, 5 years, and terminates at that time.
Yes, sir.
From 15 to 19.
That's right.
15 to 19, I guess it would be
Yeah,
15 to 19.
3 months or something like that.
I think that this is something that it's kind of something that I'd advocate doing in order to alleviate and eliminate any further water rate increase to cover the cost of our water treatment.
And the rationale for the termination in September 2019 will become clear when we discuss the next item.
Right. Right.
I think it's a
I think it's, I certainly endorse this proposal, so we don't have to raise water rates anymore, and I would make the motion that we adopt ordinance 954.
Second.
Councilman Randolph.
Yes.
Councilman Martinez.
Yes.
Councilman Lowry.
Yes.
Councilman Huber.
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes. Is it just 50% plus one vote?
Yes.
In April? Action item C, ordinance 955, levy and collection of 95 100% sales tax.
You currently have a 1 cent sales tax, which 5% of the revenue is dedicated to the operation of Acme Bread. The police department refurbishment, your new fire department is covered by that. There's also some economic development funds included in that. Did I leave anything out? Is that basically the four things that it covers? Those expire September the 31st of 2019, is that correct, Brian? This, and then now the 5%, the 5% of the 1% that goes to Agnew Creek Park, when that was passed, I believe it was passed in perpetuity. That's why you see this says 0.95, because that 5% of 1% continues to go on. What this would do, and again, it goes to the vote of the people, is that at that time, or on October 1st, that 0.95 would be continued until, I think, 2044. I think it's a 25-year extension. What you would have is, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but is it 0.85 and that 0.95 would be earmarked for the water project?
Right.
And that would leave 0.1 that would be set aside for economic development. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
15%.
No.
It's 15%.
85% of the 0.95 and the other 15% of the 0.95 to equal 1 of the 0.95.
Yeah.
So it's 15% of 95%.
Right.
Yes.
And 85% of 95%.
Yes.
85% and 95%.
Yes.
Is water plant, 15 and 85, 15 and 95 is Devil River.
Yes, when you look at the whole, I just calculated, when you look at the whole 1 penny, that fourth penny, it would be 0.8075 for debt service, 0.1425 for economic development, and then the 5% that's permanent would still be going to Acme operations, out of a 1 cent.
It was so much easier when I explained it out. But
I
the point is, it addresses two things, the water project and economic development. And it, by sundowning the 0.5% that the council just voted on, October the 1, if this passes, you would be back where you are today. Now in a nutshell, that's what happens with these two things.
Sounds
Is there any other
interesting.
language in the 5 that I didn't?
No, I don't think so. Who else decided?
I did.
I would say that, I think Elk City just passed 0.5 sales tax, earmarked for school construction.
Oh, yeah.
That will be, put in at 9.3. We're currently at 9, I believe, in the,
Total, we're at 9.5 right now.
9.5 right now. Okay, so for roughly 4 years and 3 months, we would be at 10. And then October the 1st, we'd roll back to 9.5.
9.5 being city, county, and state.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's something we should do. We need to they work together and not raise rates. I would make a motion to adopt ordinance 955.
Second, anybody?
I'll second that.
Councilman Rodoff?
Yes.
Councilman Lowry?
Yes.
Councilman Martinez?
Yes.
Councilman Hewland?
Yes.
And Mayor?
Yes. Couple big votes there. Action item E, no, D, agreement with Mars Pet Care regarding recycling service.
That's a replication of what you just did on the solid waste authority side. We're simply asking if you can do that on the city side as well.
Motion, anybody? I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Councilman Lowry?
Yes.
Councilman Hewland?
Yes.
Councilman Rodoff?
Yes.
Councilman Martinez?
Yes.
And Mayor?
Yes. Action item E, surplus fire truck to Western Technology.
And you all thought that Randy just came because this is his last city council meeting, but that's not quite true. I do want to say that during the short period of time that I've had here, this gentleman has been a joy to work with. And I really appreciate you taking the time to try to teach me about the Clinton Fire Department. With that being said,
It's been a hard job, hasn't it, Randy?
you never worked with him. He just kept repeating himself.
Whatever it takes.
What this is, gentlemen, is our old ladder truck, as we call it, engine 4. As you know, we can't get it fixed, can't find parts for it anywhere. But the Western Technology Center has built the training grounds at Elk City, and they're in need of a pumper truck. This truck still pumps water well. It will do what they need, but also Mr. Baxter, Dennis Baxter, as I've known him, most of you may know him as Dennis, teaches hydraulics, and we're hoping that maybe he can fix that part of it so they can utilize the aerial part in training as well. This is something that departments have done all over the state, donating their old apparatus for training purposes. And I think it would be great for the city of Clinton to do this and have our name at Elk City at that training center, because it'll be on the side of that truck, big bold letters, Clinton Fire Department. So
Our staff utilizes it.
our staff does utilize that facility. I also have, at this time, well, I'll leave it, so it drops us back to four authorized instructors that can teach out there as well. And we, the guys, I say we, I no longer do it well, I'll still do this because I still teach, but we will have guys from our facility, our department, that will teach at this facility. So, you know, we'll be working with equipment we're familiar with, which helps as well. But I just think it speaks well for the city of Clinton to put that out there and make use of something rather than to sell it for scrap, because it's still functional, it's just not safe for use in the way that we need to use it. It's reasonable in place.
You can't certify it anymore, can you?
No, we cannot certify, we can certify the pump, we just can't certify the ladder.
Win-win.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I make a motion we do that.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ray.
Councilman Rodoff?
Yes.
Councilman Martinez?
Yes.
Councilman Bowley?
Yes.
Councilman Huglen?
Yes.
And Mayor.
Yes. Vice presentation, my chief officer.
We're not sure what it is.
Oh, okay, well, never mind. Council reports? Anybody agree?
I believe we have a public works, meeting, but can we have an update on the water treatment plant at Clinton Lake?
That comes under item 6. Brian stayed here for that.
City manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
You could have avoided
thank you.
Council reports, any other? Mr. Scott.
Mr. Meyer?
Good evening, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to be here again. It's been quite a bit going on since the last time we got together, which I think was in mid-December. I think it was right prior to taking bids on the well construction on the Dixon property. Those bids came in, they were, I feel like very good bids, came in a tight range, I think approximately $10,000 separating the highest and lowest bid of 3 bids. So I think that was a successful process. Since that time, we've engaged the contractor in finalizing the design and planning and permitting for construction of that well. The good news is that I think we're point blank away from construction now. One of the issues that's been discussed considerably over the last weeks, months, is the permitting process. In conversation with DEQ, they basically targeted next week to issue the construction permit. And as of this morning, they were still on track to issue that construction permit, still targeting that. Then immediately construction would proceed with the well. Fairly short-term construction process with the well, approximately a week to get it in place. After the surface casing will be the first step. That could go in as early as next week with the rest of the balance of well construction, hopefully the following week. So seeing good progress on that. Did meet with the drilling contractor today to finalize some of those details and work through any questions he had. So he's going to place the order on his materials today if he got a chance before close of business. So that's moving along nicely. Immediately following construction, development, testing of the well, with beginning the balance of construction. We also met with a local contractor today to try to streamline that process, make sure what elements could overlap and how that construction could be coordinated to speed the process. Because we're still, frankly, still targeting March to have construction complete and water available from that source of supply. So it's going to take a concentrated effort over the next 6+ weeks, and we're going to make that happen. So good news on that front. Things are getting very close to starting construction. The water treatment plant process is continuing. The engineering report will likely be submitted the last week of this month, which will be the week of the 26th or the first week in February. The likely scenario for submittal of that is a direct meeting with TEQ. I think that's one of the challenges, and I think one thing that we've learned through this process, when there's fairly complex projects, just meeting and going through the details immediately and taking as many questions and addressing them head on right up front is very valuable. So the engineering report will be submitted. Anticipate that the golf course development, the 2 wells at the golf course, that engineering report will be submitted in the same time frame as well. A little different level of detail as far as the final design on those 2 pieces. Looking at the plant, still targeting this summer to have that bid package out and begin construction. So that's on track. Golf course, hope to have that out considerably sooner. The big issue there, as we've said, we know we've got a pretty good idea of what the quantity and quality is, but finalizing those and actually drilling wells and collecting production and water quality data from the wells themselves, targeting this spring to have that complete. So I think time is of the essence on that as well. So we're going to push that on a faster time frame, get those in the ground, get detailed information. So on the other front, another front is additional source identification. That's been very active over the last, frankly, a couple of months. Been some investigation going on for local pieces of property. And I'd have to say at this point, recently some fairly promising results. I think we'll get more clarity on those options within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I would hope that when I come back to see you in February, we could have a little more definitive answer on where that additional, because we're still targeting, we have been all along, at least 1 additional water supply location. And I think we've got some pretty promising potential, both from a capacity and a proximity to our collection systems. So that's looking good as well. Hopefully a lot more to come in the near term on that. So I know that's a pretty brief summary of a lot of activity. I'd really open it up to any questions that in specific areas that anybody might have.
We have drilled test holes on 7 different property owners. We've found promise in some of those we haven't. That was just to study the soil profile. We have not run any pump test on anything yet to see just how much water is there. But at least we have found indications that there are water. And we appreciate those property owners for working with this group. We're not going to identify who they are at this time.
Well, that's good news in and of itself, because we know from experience that water is easy to find.
And Donald, you were mentioning in a meeting how many feet of water are in Clinton Lake?
Yeah, there's 10 feet in the lake right now.
And we can treat down to 5, is that?
Yeah, around 4.
4. So an estimate of days supply at our current usage would be, do we say 60 or 90?
60 to 90 probably.
Okay. Not a lot.
Yeah.
I was just saying one of the most telling things I think that Donald mentioned was that, I think in July it was at 5 feet.
Yeah.
So, sitting considerably better right now than where we were last summer. So that's better than Absolutely.
We've actually utilized Clinton Lake well water since July, when we had issues with supply.
Yeah.
And we did treat and send it. And actually, the people in town have been drinking their own water a couple times and not known that they work.
And that's absolutely right. I mean, the value of the Dixon supply is that whether it's Foss, that it's supplementing, or Clinton Lake to extend the how long we can use Clinton Lake, that's its value. So it's there every day. So yeah, it needs to be ready to go as soon as possible, and that's why
And we've stayed pretty well on the timeline that we said we would.
yeah, it's, we have, and I think the commitments we have from DEQ are going to allow that to continue. I think the dialogue is.
Forget it until the 26th.
Right. I don't see you after that.
Midnight, I believe.
Yeah. Hey,
I
with
thought
the,
it was 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
with the Dixon well, if it's, when you do it online, would that extend past the 60 to 90? Maybe?
It would, in that we would be blending that, so you would reduce the amount that you were actually pumping and treating out of Lake Clinton. So whatever that ratio would end up being, yeah, it would extend it by reducing the demand on Clinton. Otherwise, we would have to rely on it 100%. So yes, no.
You know, you might not have answered this, I have one more question now. So you take the golf course wells and the other water that you might be able to find, is it possible you could blend all that water with Clinton Lake before you use before the RO plant is up and running? Potentially to some degree. I think you'd have some water quality challenges. I think we'd see deterioration in the water quality. Because I don't think we could blend it at a high enough rate, you know, to get an acceptable or what you're used to water quality. I think we'd still be using a lot of Clinton and very little of the other sources because it's so hard. But certainly that is something that we would look at. Should it become necessary, Right.
I think we have to. So that's the value of getting the golf course development done as quickly as possible.
One thing you have to look at, it's gonna take some time to run a pipeline from the golf course. So, in theory, we could have nearly have our RO plant ready by the time we have the pipeline.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. I mean, that is the biggest piece of that is that pipeline. The good news is with the route that's been selected, it's at least from a interference and a progress standpoint, probably the most streamlined we could get it. But it certainly is. Emergency, I think we have to start thinking about some of those things, and you know, so the golf course development, where else could you put it into the system if you just needed water for fire protection or for other things? So, I mean, I think we're going to continue to look at all those scenarios, and then pray that we don't need them, but you got to be thinking about them in advance, and we're starting to do that. So,
Anybody else?
My question was more on the line of the repairs to the water treatment facility. Have all the repairs been made at Clinton Lake?
They're not totally done yet. We're still, Jeremy's teaching at Mustanger. He could talk about the chlorine dioxide generator more, but the electrical and SCADA and all of that is about to be wrapped up. The chlorine dioxide generator, I think got some.
That'll be on the next agenda for your approval to buy. It's $29,000, I believe. What I remember. That's what puts the ammonia and chlorine together and generates.
Is it 25?
No, it's between 5 and 50, and on the purchasing. I talked to you about the
Right.
generator.
Anything over 50,000 has to be competitively bid.
Right.
Anything under that has to have multiple quotes. Lowest and best responsible bidder is awarded the bid.
But it takes council.
But council approval, yes, for anything over $10,000 based on our city policy for equipment purchases.
There you go.
We've got 2 quotes.
I've been through this.
Yes.
Not everybody.
Smarter than Ryan.
Oh, there's not a lot of people making these. We got 2 quotes. We'll bring those to you next time.
All right.
Anything else we need to know?
I think we covered that. I'll look forward to coming back next month and talking about the construction progress.
All right, yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You have anything else?
I do not.
Audience participation? Yes. Ms.
I have a
Lowry.
question. I'm hoping this is legal to ask, but since it was reiterated on the D on the action item, if the Mars Pet Care is going to do some recycling,
Yeah.
I was wondering if there was anything maybe that they would allow us to recycle out of their property, whether it's tin cans or something, because since we have no recycling here except the newspapers through the schools. So if we could maybe see if there'd be a possibility of adding anything into that recycling project.
This stuff that they're recycling is more along the lines of, it's a special waste, more along the lines of animal waste products that they can't, or that we can't transport for them, and the public can't transport for them. It's not necessarily the paper and the tin cans and that sort of thing. It's this special hazardous waste.
So only if you have that kind of stuff.
Okay. So if I scoop up a dead dog.
There you go.
I
I was gonna go that far.
Okay, let's hope.
Anything else, Cheryl?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Consider a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved. Second.
Councilman Hewland?
Yes.
Councilman Lowry?
Yes.
Councilman Martinez?
Yes.
Councilman Rodoff?
Yes.